Have you ever seen talent so pure and unexpected that it stops a room full of millions in its tracks? Two brothers from a tiny fishing village in the Philippines step onto the America's Got Talent stage with nothing but worn guitars and voices filled with soul and heartbreak, and halfway through their song Simon Cowell does something no one saw coming. If you want to witness one of the most emotional and shocking golden buzzer moments in AGT history, then subscribe right now and hit the notification bell, because this is the story that will stay with you forever. The air backstage was thick with nerves. Talent shows like America's Got Talent were not new to the world, but for these two young men, this was everything. They walked out from the shadows of the curtains with slow, purposeful steps, their worn shoes barely making a sound on the polished floor. Their names were Caleb and Johan Reyes, brothers born and raised in a small village called San Isidro on the edge of a Philippine coastline so beautiful it was heartbreaking, and yet so poor that most people dreamt more of leaving than staying. It was on that very shore that they had learned their first chords, strumming handmade guitars at dawn while the fishing boats pulled in their nets. They came from a family that had known hardship. Their father had died in a storm when they were very young, swallowed by waves that took him out to sea just a few miles from the reef he had known all his life. Their mother worked long hours stitching clothes for neighbors and distant relatives, her fingers blistered from needlework and her back forever bent from labor. Every night after school, the brothers practiced music instead of studying for exams. It was their way of escaping a reality that was far too cruel yet somehow beautiful in the way the morning sun gleamed on their village's water. Their voices were untrained, born not in studios but in the open air by the sea. They had never learned music in any formal school, never stood on stages that glowed with lights or faced crowds bigger than a handful of locals. They sang because it felt natural, because their hearts seemed to pour themselves into every melody, every harmony that rose out of their lungs. Neighbors would stop their work and listen as the brothers played, fishermen would nod their heads, and children would hush their games just to hear them sing. And in that small village, the boys learned that music did more than fill the silence, it lifted spirits and connected souls. It was a local vlogger who first recorded a video of the brothers performing at a small beach festival and shared it online. The clip was humble, shaky, and raw, but when Caleb and Johan started to sing, everything changed. The video spread slowly at first, shared from phone to phone, then overnight jumping across continents. Comments poured in from strangers around the world saying how beautiful their voices were. Some said they sounded like angels, others spoke of how moved they were to tears. Many urged them to go to America's Got Talent, to show the world what they had. At first the brothers could not even imagine it. America was far away, a place they knew only from movies and television, a land of dreams that had always felt out of reach. But the message boards kept lighting up with messages and emails. A few generous friends and supporters from the Philippines helped them raise enough money for visas and plane tickets. And after months of planning, after saying tearful goodbyes to their mother, the brothers found themselves in Los Angeles, city of impossible dreams and blazing lights, thousands of miles from San Isidro. Their audition day was surreal. Backstage was a swirl of performers from every corner of the globe, each with stories of struggle and hope. Some contestants looked confident, practiced, professional, others were nervous, stamping their feet or humming softly to calm their nerves. Caleb and Johan held hands, trying to remind each other that they belonged here as much as anyone else. When their names were called, they walked forward, breathing deeply, step by step, into the bright lights and the blinding cameras. When the music began, they closed their eyes and let the familiar chords guide them. The opening notes were soft yet steady, like waves rolling gently onto shore. Their voices blended effortlessly, a harmony that seemed both ancient and immediate. At first the judges watched with polite interest, but as the song grew richer and deeper, their expressions changed. The audience leaned in, and by the chorus, every head in the room seemed to have turned, every breath seemed to be waiting for what came next. Then, just when everyone thought they had heard all there was to hear, Caleb and Johan shifted seamlessly into a second melody, something unexpected, something that seemed to reach deep into the heart. It was the moment where raw talent met raw emotion. The audience gasped. Some wiped their eyes. The judges went silent, captivated. The song ended, and for a heartbeat, there was nothing but quiet. The applause started slowly, then built into a thunderous wave of sound that filled the room. But the real shock was yet to come. The judge known for his harsh critiques, Simon Cowell, stood up and walked forward. His face was serious, unreadable, as he approached the golden buzzer. Then, with a nod that stunned everyone, he slammed that button with a force that seemed like thunder crashing from the sky. Confetti exploded, cheers erupted, and Caleb and Johan dropped to their knees, overwhelmed, crying tears of disbelief and joy. No one expected it, not even them. They had only hoped to make the judges listen. But Simon's golden buzzer meant they were going straight to the live shows. It meant their dreams were now real. The weeks that followed were an emotional whirlwind. Their audition aired on national television, and suddenly the world knew their names. Messages poured in from fans across the USA and the globe. Some media outlets picked up their story, telling how two poor Filipino boys had stunned audiences with voices that seemed larger than life. Offers for interviews, music collaborations, and invitations to perform in concerts came flooding in. It was exhilarating, overwhelming, at times too much to process. Yet every new opportunity came with pressure. Some critics questioned whether they could handle fame. Others debated whether their style was commercial enough for mainstream music industry standards. There were nights when the brothers sat in their tiny apartment, exhausted from rehearsals and media appearances, reading mixed comments online and feeling afraid. Was all of this too much? Were they ready for what came next? But each time self-doubt crept in, they looked at each other and remembered San Isidro. They remembered the mornings by the sea, their father's smile, their mother's encouragement. And they found strength again. Their first live performance on AGT was a turning point. They were asked to interpret a song outside of their comfort zone, a popular contemporary hit filled with electronic beats and technical vocal runs. For days they practiced, determined to honor the original while bringing something uniquely their own. On the night of the performance, the lights were brighter than ever, the cameras felt closer, and the silence before they began held a weight that made their hearts pound. Then they started. Their voices carried through the song with passion and precision, their harmonies intertwining with the music in a way that surprised even the judges. When they finished, the crowd rose in applause, some shouting their names, some wiping tears away. They had proved they could adapt while staying true to their voices. Later, a famous music producer was brought in to help them craft an original song. The producer was known for working with top artists, and at first the brothers were intimidated. He challenged them to dig deeper into their experiences, to translate their life in San Isidro into lyrics and melody. The process was emotional. They wrote about loss and hope, family and sacrifice. The song came straight from their hearts, and when they first performed it in front of an audience, the response was immediate and powerful. It became one of the most talked about moments on the show that season. But not everything was smooth. In one round of competition, the brothers were paired with a guest superstar whose style was flashy and bold. At first the pairing seemed mismatched. Critics said a collaboration between humble acoustic singers and a chart-topping pop icon was odd at best. But on the day of the performance, something unexpected unfolded. The brothers and the superstar found a common musical language, blending soulful harmonies with electric rhythms. The audience erupted, and critics admitted they had been wrong to doubt. It became one of the most memorable duets of that season. Yet the greatest test was the finale. Weeks of pressure, travel, rehearsals, public appearances, and emotional strain had worn them thin. The night before the finale they received heartbreaking news that their mother had fallen dangerously ill back home. The brothers were thousands of miles away, and there was nothing they could do but pray. They talked through the night, wrestling with whether to stay in the competition or fly back. But their mother, strong despite her pain, called them and told them to do what they had worked so hard for. She said her heart would be stronger hearing them sing for millions than worrying about what might happen if they left. She reminded them of their father's belief that dreams should be pursued no matter the cost. The finale performance became something sacred. They stood on stage and sang not for competition, but for love, for family, for the countless people who had supported them. They poured every ounce of emotion into the song, their voices rising and falling like waves against the shore they once knew so well. When the final note faded, there was not a single person in the arena who did not feel the weight of that moment. The applause was deafening, the cheers thunderous, and the tears of many reflected the power of genuine human connection through music. When the winner was announced, the crowd held its breath. And then it was them. The twin voices, Caleb and Johan Reyes. The brothers embraced, crying, laughing, overwhelmed by the realization that their journey had led them here. Their mother's voice came through on speakerphone as she cried with joy. The moment was one of triumph and love, a reminder that dreams do not belong only to the wealthy or privileged, but to anyone brave enough to follow their hearts. Since then their lives have transformed beyond imagination. They went on tour across the United States, sharing stages with renowned artists. Their original songs topped charts. They used their success to build music programs in underprivileged areas in the Philippines, helping other young talents find their voice. They never forgot where they came from, and they never stopped singing with the honesty and soul that first made the world pay attention. Their story is one that will be told for generations. Two young men from a poor village who stood on one of the biggest stages in the world, sang from their hearts, and moved millions. Their voices changed their lives, but it was their courage and authenticity that touched the world.